Welcome to this Master's Level Customer Service Training module for dealing with difficult customers. We will be talking about some of the most vital components in regards to working with irate and difficult customers. The key points will be understanding your customer, knowing what type of a customer you're working with and how to respond, understanding why your customer is upset and how to appropriately respond, working with customers who are difficult but not upset, working with customers who are using profanity, trigger phrases which could escalate a situation, handling irate customers, and what to do after an upset customer has left. Understanding your customer is important in order to make sure that you are approaching them properly. The first thing to do is to decipher their mood. Understand what type of a customer you're working with. Determine if they are irate, angry, irritated, upset, frustrated, neutral, confused, or worried. Sometimes customers can be difficult without being upset. Make sure that your customer does not simply have a gruff personality prior to assuming that they are upset. Once you know how your customer is feeling, determine how to proceed. If they are upset, the first thing to do is calm them down so that you can work with them. If they are neutral, you want to keep them neutral, or better yet, help make them happy and satisfied. If they are confused or worried, find out what they need and help them to understand. If your customer is indeed upset, take a moment to gauge whether the customer is upset with you, the company, or the specific situation. If the customer is upset with you, apologize, make reparations if possible, offer to correct the problem, or offer a manager if appropriate. If the customer is upset with the company, offer what is within your ability to give the customer. Give as many options as possible, offer customer relations information if applicable, offer a manager or the next level of manager if appropriate. If a customer is upset with the situation, find out what it is that has them upset, offer appropriate solutions, give as many options as possible, suggest alternatives to the original issue, ask them how they would like to see it resolved, do what is possible within company policy, and offer a manager or the next level of management if appropriate. Sometimes customers are simply difficult and not upset. They may seem obstinate or rude, unwilling to budge from what they feel entitled to. Oftentimes these customers will make demands which simply cannot be accommodated. With these customers, it's best to try and find some form of compromise that will satisfy them and make them feel valued. For instance, if an item is out of stock and the customer does not want to drive to another store due to distance or traffic or weather, offer to contact that store and see if you can make arrangements for the item to be sent to your store. If a customer is dissatisfied with the amount of time a service will take, see if there are other incentives that could be added, or offer additional services which can be completed in the same amount of time but would give the customer more value. Sometimes customers will not believe that no is the only available answer. Likely this is a customer making an unreasonable demand. Offer this customer what is available to assist them and resolve their issue, if possible without saying no. It's possible for customers to have a language or speaking barrier. They may be speech impaired, or the language they're speaking is not their native tongue. If this happens, there are a few tricks that can help you to overcome this barrier. One thing to avoid is calling attention to whatever the barrier is in a negative manner, as this can and likely will be offensive to the customer. After they explain the issue to you, repeat it back to ensure that you understood. Paraphrase, but not too much. Use the same words that they are using. If they refer to something as one thing, but it is in fact called something else, explain that to them, or use the term they chose to use in the first place. If at all possible, get the customer to show you what it is they're talking about. If they're having a problem with an item, ask them to show it to you. If they're inquiring about a piece of merchandise, ask them to take you to it. If the issue at hand is that you and the customer do not have the same native tongue, it is possible that they will be difficult to understand. Regardless of the language, many customers will be offended if they are told they're not speaking it properly. If the language barrier is too great to be overcome, rather than saying, "I can't understand you," or worse yet, "Is there someone who could translate for you?" try a more carefully worded phrase. "Your accent is difficult for me," or "Your accent is quite pronounced. Do you mind if we slow down a little bit?" This takes the blame off of the customer and places it on you. Many customers will use profanity, and there are a few things to keep in mind. Always follow company policy, but remember, not all customers are cursing because they're upset. It may just be the way the customer speaks. If it does not offend you, and company policy does not require you to stop them, it may not always be necessary to address the language. If this is simply how the customer speaks, and they are not upset, it is possible that by addressing the language, you might inadvertently upset them. If the customer is using profanity and it is offensive to you, or it is due to the fact that they're upset and is becoming threatening, utilizing a help, stop, help method may be effective. This method asks that you emphasize to the customer that you want to help them, while letting them know that the language needs to cease. I want to help you resolve this issue. And if you stop cursing, then I will be better able to help you with a resolution. Utilize a constructive phrase to address the issue. Statements such as, "It's offensive to me," or "Please remain professional," in reference to profanity may easily make the customer more upset. A phrase such as, "I really want to help you, but that kind of language is distracting to me and makes it more difficult to focus on the issue at hand. Would you please stop cursing so that I could better assist you?" will likely be more effective. There are a number of phrases that, if said to customers, have the potential to make a good situation bad, or a bad situation worse. These phrases should be avoided. My manager will say the same thing. While this is often true, it is not always the case. Generally, each new level of leadership is given more freedom of discretion when it comes to handling customer concerns. Often, customers will try to climb the ladder until they get what they want, and the most common way to discourage them from this is to let them know that the next level of management will uphold the previous decision. A better option would be a phrase such as, "I would be happy to contact my direct supervisor and ask them to get in touch with you, but I have the authority to make decisions for the company and your request is not something that we can do. I would be happy to offer you something else instead. I'm not sure where you heard that," or "We've never offered anything like that." Customers will often bring up something that they heard from a friend or from a business associate during an interaction, such as a special discount or an item being priced higher at one store than another. You are the expert and your job is to inform the customer while still making them feel valued. Rather than pointing out their error, simply reassure them. A phrase such as, "I can assure you that this is what is available right now," would be effective to let the customer know that they are being told the truth and that what they may have heard from someone else could have just been hearsay. Did you read the policy? It is not a customer's job to read company policy. If there is a policy that the customer should be aware of, they should be made aware of it by the employees. For instance, a return policy. Customers should be advised at the point of sale and have it clearly pointed out on the receipt to save frustration later should a customer attempt to return the item outside of the proper time. Rather than pointing out policy that the customer has no reasonable expectation of knowing, try to immediately offer an alternative solution. For instance, in the case of a customer attempting to return an item outside of the return time frame, a response of, "I would be happy to offer you an exchange based on the current price of the item, or offer you a store credit if there's nothing else that you want today," would be an acceptable statement. Are you finished? Or is it my turn to talk? Oftentimes a customer will interrupt you repeatedly when they are upset or frustrated. They are trying to get their point across and want you to see their point of view. If it appears that you are not seeing it, they will interject whenever possible. These same customers may complain that you're interrupting them if you begin to speak while they're forming new thoughts. It can be easy to become frustrated and impatient with these customers, especially if you can see an immediate and easy resolution to their issue if you could only explain it to them. Never give in to the urge to interrupt them or to demand to be given the floor. Either let them finish or politely interrupt them by saying something such as, "If I could interrupt you momentarily, I have an idea that will resolve the concerns you're telling me about. May I go over it with you?" I don't know. While not knowing an answer is acceptable, simply stating "I don't know" is not. There will be times that you do not have an answer for a customer. When this happens, rather than just letting them know that you don't know, it would be more effective to say something such as, "That is a very good question. If you wouldn't mind waiting here for me, I'm going to check with our experts and get the answer for you. That way I know that I'm giving you the correct information." This way, the customer will trust the answer they receive and feel valued that you took the time to check with an expert just for them. I'm new here. Even if it's true, a customer doesn't need to know that you're new unless they specifically ask. When you are new at any company, there will always be a learning curve when things will be unfamiliar, and you won't always have the answers that customers need. Often, people use the phrase, "I'm new," as a way to say, "I don't know." In that case, the same technique would be just as effective. There are several important tips when it comes to working with upset customers. The key is to give them the opportunity to calm down. When they are irate or yelling, they are not open to listening to you. Once they've calmed down, they will be able to be reasonable and talk with you. Don't interrupt a customer who is venting frustration. By doing so, you will only make them even more upset and cause them to become more frustrated and vocal. Let them get out their frustration and fully explain what is happening. Once they pause and take a breath, then it is your turn to speak. Once the customer has given the floor over to you, the very first thing to do is to express empathy and let them know that you understand why they feel how they feel, even if you can't necessarily relate to it. Letting the customer know that they are not wrong to be upset is important because it is the first step to building rapport and gaining their trust. Never put words in your customer's mouth. If they have said they're angry, it would be acceptable to say something to the effect of, "I can understand why you're angry." If they've said they're frustrated, it would not be appropriate to say, "I can understand why you're mad." Doing so may very well make them mad. Never raise your voice or let your emotions take you to the customer's level. Remain calm and practice taking slow, deep breaths while concentrating on what the customer is saying and showing them that you are listening. Speak in a slow, even tone, or if possible, lower your voice just a bit. The customer wants to hear what you're saying, and if they're yelling, they will naturally lower their own voice so that they can hear yours. While your customer is explaining to you what they want, listen to what they're saying and make mental notes as to what policies or procedures may allow you to accommodate their request. Know before you respond what options you might be able to present, or who you might be able to check with in order to offer something outside of policy. One key to remember with an upset customer is to focus on what you can do and not on what you can't do. If you avoid saying no, but simply tell the customer what you can do, you are keeping the conversation positive, which will make it harder for the customer to slip back into a negative mood. For instance, rather than saying, "I'm sorry, unfortunately I can't do what you want, but what I can do is," try a more positive approach. A statement such as, "Well, I do have the ability to offer you," is just as effective at getting across a point or an offer, but removes all the negative connotations, such as, "I'm sorry," "unfortunately," and "I can't do that." The trigger phrases mentioned previously should be avoided whenever possible. These phrases can take an upset customer and make them irate, and even sometimes make a customer who is neutral become frustrated or upset. If a customer seems physically violent or volatile, never engage them directly. Contact security and make sure other employees are safe and not engaging with the customer directly. Subtle gestures can display you to the customer in a non-threatening light, but you may need to take a more dominant stance with some customers in order to show that you have the authority. It may be possible to utilize body language and gestures in order to calm down an upset customer. While the instinct may be to either stay hidden behind a counter or to try and take a dominant stance and tower over the customer, these may only serve to upset them further. Instead, try to remove physical barriers. If you are behind a desk, counter, or other barrier, come out from behind it. By remaining behind the barrier, you are being territorial, and this can be a sign of defensiveness, aggressiveness, or an unwillingness to help. Show open palms. Extend your hands slightly, palms up and open towards the customer to show that you are not being threatening and that you want to make them trust you. Make yourself non-threatening by making yourself as small as possible, slouching or slumping your shoulders slightly. This will show the customer that you are not a threat. After dealing with a difficult customer, it may be difficult to move forward with necessary tasks and work, especially if the customer managed to fluster you. There are several things that you can do to help calm yourself after a difficult encounter. Take a very brief walk out of sight of customers, 2 or 3 minutes to elevate the heart rate and force your body to breathe a bit more deeply. Take a moment to talk with a coworker or manager. Ask their advice on handling similar situations in the future, or talk about something totally unrelated. Step outside for a moment and enjoy the weather if it's nice. Drink a glass of cool water. This might not be a good time for anything caffeinated, as it will tend to increase your pulse, which is likely already faster than normal. Deep, calming breaths can do wonders for lowering your pulse and calming your nerves. Take a moment to step away from customers and take several deep breaths. Chances are good that if a customer has flustered you, you have naturally tensed your body. This will cause your muscles to tense up and ache. Taking a moment to stretch them out again will help calm you, especially if coupled with a brief walk and some deep breathing. By using these tips and tricks, you will be better able to work with upset customers and better equipped to resolve issues amicably and easily. Your customers will be more satisfied, and your career will be more rewarding. Thank you for joining us for this customer service module on dealing with difficult customers.